In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where stars burned like ancient lanterns and planets drifted silently in the endless void, there existed a species feared by all. They were called the Krill, hunters born from a world of fire and shadow. Their sleek, armored bodies shimmered under alien suns, their claws sharp enough to tear through steel, and their eyes glowed with an eerie blue light that pierced even the darkest corners of space. For centuries, no race had stood against them. Civilizations fell before their might, reduced to ruins or enslaved for sport. To the Krill, war was not just a means of survival, it was their way of life. Commander Vrax stood at the helm of his flagship, the Bladeclaw, staring out into the void as his fleet prepared to descend upon yet another unsuspecting planet. His towering frame radiated authority, every movement precise and deliberate. He wore his scars proudly, each one a testament to battles fought and won. Today, however, something felt different. This mission wasn't about plunder or conquest. It was curiosity. A distant signal had caught their attention. Earth, a small blue-green orb teeming with primitive life forms known as humans. Humans, he growled, testing the word on his tongue. It sounded weak, insignificant, but intelligence reports suggested otherwise. These creatures were clever, adaptable, and resourceful, traits the Krill respected, albeit begrudgingly. Still, respect didn't mean mercy. If anything, it made the hunt more thrilling. Behind him, Lieutenant Syrah approached cautiously, her steps echoing faintly against the cold metal floor. "Commander," she said, bowing slightly, "all ships are ready. Shall we begin the descent?" Vrax turned slowly, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "Tell me again, Syrah, what do we know of these humans?" Syrah hesitated for a moment, then straightened. "They have developed basic technology. Aircraft, firearms, satellites, but nothing compared to ours. Their weapons are crude, their defenses scattered. However," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "they seem to value cooperation. Even their weakest members contribute to their collective strength." Vrax let out a low chuckle, a sound that sent shivers down Syrah's spine. "Cooperation," he repeated almost mockingly. "How quaint. Let us see how long this so-called unity lasts when faced with true predators." As the Bladeclaw entered orbit around Earth, Vrax studied the planet below through the ship's observation deck. Its surface was a patchwork of greens, blues, and browns, dotted with sprawling cities and vast oceans. It looked peaceful, almost serene. But appearances could be deceiving. The Krill had learned that lesson countless times before. The first wave of dropships launched without delay, descending like dark clouds over major cities. Explosions lit up the night sky as humanity scrambled to respond. Vrax watched the chaos unfold with detached fascination. Humans ran in panic, some screaming, others fighting back with whatever tools they could find. Primitive firearms spat bursts of fire upward, doing little damage to the heavily armored Krell soldiers. But then something unexpected happened. In one city, a group of humans armed with makeshift explosives managed to take down a Krill patrol. Elsewhere, civilians banded together to protect their wounded, forming barricades out of rubble. Vrax leaned forward, intrigued. Such defiance was rare among prey species. Most broke under pressure, crumbling into despair. Yet here were humans, refusing to yield even as death rained down upon them. For the first time in centuries, Commander Vrax felt a flicker of uncertainty. Could these fragile beings truly pose a challenge, or was this merely the desperate thrashing of cornered animals? Only time would tell. And time, as always, favored the hunters, or so he believed. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The first strike hit hard, and the world watched in stunned silence. Cities burned under the relentless assault of the Krill, their sleek ships cutting through the skies like blades of doom. Explosions tore apart buildings, scattering debris and panic across streets once filled with life. The invaders moved with terrifying efficiency, targeting military bases, communication hubs, and power grids. Within hours, chaos reigned supreme. But humanity wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. In Geneva, Switzerland, leaders from around the globe gathered at the United Nations headquarters. The air was thick with tension as representatives argued over how best to respond to this unprecedented threat. Some called for immediate surrender, believing resistance would only lead to more destruction. Others demanded a unified counterattack, urging humanity to fight back with everything they had. Amidst the heated debate stood Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant scientist known for her work in alien linguistics and technology. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the rising panic around her. "Listen to me," she said firmly, stepping forward to address the assembly. "These creatures aren't here to negotiate. They don't care about treaties or diplomacy. From what I've analyzed in their intercepted transmissions, they see us as prey, nothing more." Her words silenced the room. Everyone turned to look at her, some skeptical, others desperate for answers. She continued, projecting images onto a large screen behind her. The pictures showed fragments of Krill armor, weapons, and even footage captured by satellites moments before the attack began. "We have one advantage they don't expect," she added, pointing to a diagram on the screen. "Creativity, adaptability. We may not have their advanced technology, but we can outthink them. And if my analysis is correct, there might be weaknesses in their armor that we can exploit." Her revelation sparked cautious hope among the leaders. It was decided then and there. Earth would unite under a single banner, the Unified Defense Coalition, UDC. Every nation pledged resources, manpower, and technology to defend the planet. Factories shifted production to manufacture weapons, while engineers worked tirelessly to develop new defenses based on Dr. Vasquez's findings. Meanwhile, ordinary people rose to meet the challenge in ways no one anticipated. In New York City, volunteer groups formed overnight, organizing evacuations and setting up makeshift shelters for refugees. Teenagers used social media platforms to share strategies for survival, teaching others how to create improvised tools and traps. Farmers offered food supplies to feed displaced families, while doctors traveled miles to treat the wounded. Lieutenant Marcus Kane, a decorated soldier stationed in Chicago, found himself leading a ragtag group of civilians determined to protect their neighborhood. Armed with little more than rifles and courage, they set up barricades using abandoned cars and construction materials. When a squad of Krill soldiers approached, Marcus ordered his team to hold their fire until the last possible moment. As the aliens drew closer, he shouted, "Now!" Bullets flew, striking the Krill's armored bodies with little effect. But it didn't matter. The ambush forced them to retreat momentarily, buying precious time for civilians to escape. For the first time since the invasion began, Marcus felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity could survive this nightmare. Back at UDC headquarters, Dr. Vasquez worked late into the night alongside a team of engineers. Together, they tested prototype devices designed to emit high-frequency sound waves, a potential vulnerability in Krill armor identified during early analyses. Each failed attempt brought frustration, but also determination. If they succeeded, these sonic disruptors could level the playing field. As dawn broke over the horizon, the battle raged on. Smoke billowed into the sky, mixing with the cries of both despair and defiance. Humanity had awakened, shaken from its slumber by an enemy unlike any other. But instead of crumbling, it stood tall, united by a shared purpose, to fight for its future. And deep within the hearts of every man, woman, and child, a quiet resolve took root. This was their home, their planet, and they would do whatever it took to save it, even if it meant facing the galaxy's greatest hunters head-on. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The Krill descended upon Earth with a ferocity that left no room for doubt. They were hunters, and humanity was their prey. Their sleek dropships carved through the skies like vengeful spirits, raining destruction on cities below. Buildings crumbled under the relentless barrage of energy weapons, streets became rivers of fire, and screams echoed through the air as people fled for their lives. The invaders moved with precision, targeting key locations to cripple humanity's ability to fight back. In New York City, Lieutenant Marcus Kane stood atop a crumbling skyscraper, his rifle slung over his shoulder as he surveyed the chaos unfolding beneath him. Smoke filled the horizon, blotting out the sun and casting an eerie shadow over what had once been one of the world's greatest cities. Around him, a group of volunteers, ordinary citizens turned makeshift soldiers, checked their weapons, and prepared for battle. They weren't trained fighters, but desperation had forged them into something formidable. "We can't let them take this city," Marcus said firmly, his voice cutting through the tension. "If we fall here, they'll keep pushing until there's nothing left." His words resonated deeply with the group. Among them was Sarah, a young woman who had lost her family in the initial attack. Her hands trembled slightly as she loaded ammunition into her pistol, but her eyes burned with determination. "What's the plan?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Marcus pointed toward a nearby intersection where Krill soldiers were advancing in tight formation. Their glowing blue eyes pierced through the haze, and their claws glinted menacingly in the dim light. "We hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they know what hit them," he explained. "They're expecting us to stand our ground. That's not how we fight. We use the city against them." As the team moved into position, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked feverishly in a makeshift lab hidden deep within the ruins of Manhattan. Alongside a team of engineers, she tested prototype devices designed to emit high-frequency sound waves, a potential weakness in Krill armor identified during early analyses. Each test brought frustration, each failure fueling her resolve. If they could perfect these sonic disruptors, humanity might have a chance. Back on the battlefield, Marcus signaled for his team to hold their positions. The Krill patrol drew closer, their heavy footsteps shaking the ground beneath them. When they reached the intersection, Marcus raised his hand, waited a heartbeat, and then barked. Now, a hail of gunfire erupted from every direction, catching the Krill off guard. Bullets ricocheted off their armored bodies, doing little damage, but it wasn't meant to kill. The ambush forced the aliens to scatter, breaking their formation and giving Marcus's team the upper hand. Using grenades rigged with shrapnel, they created makeshift traps in narrow alleyways, forcing the Krill into confined spaces where their size became a disadvantage. One alien lunged at Sarah, its claws slashing through the air. She ducked just in time, rolling to the side before firing her pistol point-blank into its chest. The shot didn't penetrate the armor, but it stunned the creature long enough for Marcus to deliver a crushing blow with the butt of his rifle. The Krill stumbled backward, roaring in rage, before retreating into the shadows. When the skirmish ended, Marcus's team regrouped, breathing heavily but alive. They had inflicted minimal casualties, but more importantly, they had proven something vital. The Krill weren't invincible. Humanity could fight back, if they were smart about it. Later that night, Dr. Vasquez received a breakthrough. One of her prototypes emitted a sharp, high-pitched tone that caused a captured Krill soldier to recoil in pain, clutching its head. It was a small victory, but it confirmed her theory. Their armor wasn't impenetrable. With further refinement, these sonic disruptors could turn the tide of the war. As dawn broke, the scars of battle remained etched across the cityscape. Fires smoldered, buildings lay in ruins, and the streets were eerily silent. But amidst the devastation, a spark of hope flickered to life. Humanity had faced the galaxy's greatest hunters, and survived. For now. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? As the days turned into weeks, humanity adapted to a new kind of war, one fought not on open battlefields but in the shadows. The Krill's superior technology and brute strength still gave them an edge, but their rigid tactics left them vulnerable to surprise attacks. Lieutenant Marcus Kane and his team had proven that guerrilla warfare could level the playing field, and soon, similar strategies spread across the globe like wildfire. In Los Angeles, small squads of fighters armed with improvised weapons launched hit-and-run assaults on Krill patrols. They used the city's labyrinthine streets and abandoned buildings to their advantage, striking quickly before melting away into the ruins. Each ambush was carefully planned, targeting supply lines, communication arrays, and isolated units. The goal wasn't just to kill. It was to frustrate, confuse, and wear down the invaders. Commander Vrax watched these developments from the safety of his flagship, the Bladeclaw. His glowing blue eyes narrowed as he reviewed reports of mounting casualties among his troops. For centuries, the Krill had faced opponents who either surrendered or stood their ground only to be crushed. This was different. Humanity refused to follow predictable patterns. They struck when least expected and vanished without a trace. It infuriated him. Why do they continue to resist? Vrax growled, pacing the command deck. Lieutenant Sira stood nearby, her expression unreadable. She hesitated before answering. They fight because they have no choice, she said quietly. Every loss strengthens their resolve. These humans, they value survival more than honor. Vrax snarled at the word honor. To the Krill, hunting was sacred, an art form passed down through generations. But this wasn't hunting anymore. It was a war of attrition, and it was costing them dearly. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez worked tirelessly alongside engineers to mass-produce sonic disruptors based on her prototype. The devices emitted high-frequency sound waves capable of disorienting Krill soldiers, temporarily disabling their advanced armor systems. Early models were bulky and short-ranged, but field tests showed promising results. In Chicago, a squad equipped with disruptors ambushed a Krill convoy, sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. Confused and vulnerable, the aliens fell back, giving humanity another crucial victory. Word of these successes spread rapidly, inspiring others to join the fight. Farmers converted tractors into mobile barricades, while tech-savvy teenagers hacked into Krill communications to gather intelligence. Even children contributed by creating decoys, mannequins dressed as soldiers, to lure Krill forces into traps. Every act of defiance, no matter how small, chipped away at the invaders' morale. But the cost of resistance was high. Cities lay in ruins, millions had been displaced, and countless lives had been lost. Yet even in the darkest moments, hope endured. In London, a group of civilians formed a network to smuggle food and medical supplies to besieged neighborhoods. When a young boy asked why they kept fighting despite the odds, an elderly woman replied simply, "Because we are human, and we don't give up." Back aboard the Bladeclaw, Vrax grew increasingly desperate. He ordered his forces to intensify their attacks, targeting civilian populations to break humanity's spirit. But instead of crumbling, people responded with even greater determination. Refugees banded together to protect each other, forming communities in underground bunkers and remote wilderness areas. Songs of resistance began to emerge, sung softly in candlelit shelters or broadcast over makeshift radios. Humanity's unity became its greatest weapon. One evening, Marcus led his team on another daring raid, this time targeting a Krill outpost near Detroit. Armed with sonic disruptors, they infiltrated the compound under cover of darkness. As the devices activated, piercing wails filled the air, causing the Krill soldiers to stumble and clutch their heads in agony. Marcus and his team moved swiftly, planting explosives and destroying vital equipment before retreating into the night. When the dust settled, the outpost was in flames. The message was clear. Humanity would not go quietly into the void. Commander Vrax stared at the burning wreckage from orbit, his claws digging into the armrest of his chair. For the first time in his long life, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. Perhaps these fragile creatures weren't so weak after all. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The tide of the war had shifted, but humanity's victories were fleeting. Every skirmish won came at a cost. More lives lost, more cities reduced to rubble. The Krill remained relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. While guerrilla tactics and sonic disruptors gave humanity an edge in small battles, they couldn't hold off the invaders forever. Bigger moves were needed. In a dimly lit underground bunker beneath Washington, D.C., leaders of the Unified Defense Coalition, UDC, gathered around a holographic map of Earth. Red markers indicated Krill strongholds. Green ones represented human resistance zones. The room buzzed with tension as strategists debated their next move. "We can't keep playing defense," said General Hayes, his voice firm. "If we're going to win this war, we need to hit them where it hurts, their command structure." Dr. Elena Vasquez nodded, leaning forward. "Their motherships are the nerve centers of their operations. If we can infiltrate one, we could gather critical intelligence and maybe even sabotage their entire fleet." The idea was risky, bordering on suicidal. But Marcus Kane, who had been listening silently from the corner, stepped forward. "I'll lead the mission," he said without hesitation. His tone left no room for argument. General Hayes studied him for a moment before nodding. "You'll need a team. Not soldiers, specialists. People who can think on their feet." By dawn, Marcus stood in front of a small group of volunteers. Among them were Dr. Vasquez, whose knowledge of Krill technology would be invaluable, and Sergeant Riley, a demolitions expert with nerves of steel. There was also Samara, a young hacker recruited from the streets of Mumbai, known for her ability to bypass even the most secure systems. Each member brought something unique to the table, and each knew the odds of returning alive were slim. Using stolen Krill tech scavenged from previous battles, the team disguised themselves as prisoners captured during earlier raids. Their plan was simple yet perilous. Board a Krill mothership under the guise of being transported for experimentation, then break free once inside. It was a gamble, but humanity had little left to lose. As they approached the massive vessel, a jagged behemoth floating ominously in orbit, Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The dropship carrying them docked with a metallic clang, and the hatch opened to reveal rows of Krill soldiers standing guard. Chains bound the team's wrists, though hidden tools allowed them to break free if necessary. With heads bowed, they shuffled out like lambs to slaughter. Inside, the ship was a maze of cold metal corridors bathed in eerie blue light. The air hummed with energy, and the sound of heavy footsteps echoed everywhere. Dr. Vasquez whispered instructions into a concealed earpiece, guiding the team through the labyrinth based on schematics she pieced together from intercepted data. Their first objective was the communications array, located deep within the ship. Along the way, they passed chambers filled with horrors, captured humans suspended in glass pods, their bodies hooked up to strange machines. Some were unconscious. Others screamed silently, trapped in nightmares induced by alien devices. Anger burned in Marcus's chest, but he forced himself to stay focused. Revenge would come later. When they finally reached the communications hub, Samara went to work, her fingers flying across a makeshift interface connected to the ship's mainframe. "Got it," she whispered after what felt like hours. "Uploading the virus now." But just as the upload began, alarms blared throughout the ship. They'd been discovered. "Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail?" The alarms blared like a death knell, reverberating through the cold, metallic corridors of the Krill mothership. Red warning lights bathed the team in an ominous glow as they scrambled to finish their mission. Samira's fingers flew across her makeshift interface, sweat beading on her forehead, despite the freezing temperature inside the ship. "Almost done," she hissed, her voice trembling. "Just 10 more seconds." Marcus stood guard at the entrance, rifle raised, scanning the corridor for any sign of approaching Krill soldiers. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat echoing louder than the shrieking alarms. Behind him, Dr. Vasquez and Sergeant Riley prepared backup plans. Riley clutching explosives, ready to blow their way out if needed, while Vasquez clutched a stolen Krill data tablet, downloading files that might hold vital information about the aliens' operations. "Move faster," Marcus barked, spotting movement down the hall. A squad of Krill warriors emerged from around the corner, their glowing blue eyes locking onto the intruders. Without hesitation, Marcus opened fire, his bullets ricocheting harmlessly off their armored bodies, but buying precious seconds. "We're out of time." "Done," Samira shouted, yanking the device free just as the virus completed its upload. The comm system flickered erratically, then shut down entirely. For a brief moment, there was silence, a fleeting victory amidst the chaos. But it didn't last long. The Krill charged forward with terrifying speed, their claws slicing through the air. Marcus fired again, this time aiming for exposed joints in their armor where earlier tests had shown vulnerabilities. One alien stumbled, giving Riley the opening he needed to toss a grenade into their midst. The explosion sent shards of metal flying, forcing the Krill to retreat momentarily. "This way," Dr. Vasquez yelled, leading the group deeper into the ship. She knew these vessels well enough by now to navigate their labyrinthine interiors. They sprinted through narrow passages, dodging patrols and narrowly avoiding detection. Every step felt heavier than the last, exhaustion setting in as adrenaline began to wane. Their escape route led them to a massive chamber, the heart of the beast. Towering machinery hummed ominously, powering the ship's systems. Alien symbols glowed faintly on control panels, pulsing in sync with the rhythmic vibrations beneath their feet. In the center of the room stood a grotesque sight, a containment pod holding what appeared to be a human prisoner, hooked up to wires and tubes that siphoned energy directly from their body. "Oh no," Dr. Vasquez whispered, horror etched across her face. "This is how they sustain themselves. They're harvesting life force." Before anyone could respond, the doors behind them burst open, and Krill reinforcements poured in. Trapped, the team exchanged desperate glances. There was no way out except through combat or self-sacrifice. "Cover me," Marcus ordered, grabbing a sonic disruptor from his belt. He activated it, sending waves of high-frequency sound rippling through the chamber. The Krill recoiled, temporarily incapacitated, but Marcus knew the effect wouldn't last long. Seizing the opportunity, Dr. Vasquez ran toward the captive, working frantically to disconnect the wires. "Help me get them out," she cried. Riley joined her, using brute strength to pry open the pod. Inside lay a young woman, pale and unconscious but alive. With the prisoner freed, the team made a break for the exit, fighting tooth and nail against overwhelming odds. Bullets whizzed past, explosions rocked the walls, and screams filled the air. Just when all hope seemed lost, Samira hacked into the ship's internal systems, triggering an emergency lockdown that sealed some of the cornered yet determined. Humanity's resolve burned brighter than ever. "Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail?" The sabotage aboard the Krill mothership sent shockwaves through their fleet. Communication systems went dark, leaving individual ships isolated and vulnerable. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity gained a significant advantage. The UDC seized the opportunity, launching coordinated offensives across multiple fronts. Cities once under siege became battlegrounds where humans fought with renewed vigor, armed not only with weapons, but also with hope. Lieutenant Marcus Kane returned to Earth as a hero, his daring mission inspiring resistance fighters worldwide. News of the team's infiltration spread like wildfire, fueling morale among weary civilians. Posters featuring Marcus's face appeared on crumbling walls alongside slogans like, "We will not be hunted," and "For every fallen star, we rise stronger." Humanity had found its rallying cry, and it refused to back down. Dr. Elena Vasquez's discoveries during the mission proved invaluable. Files stolen from the mothership revealed critical weaknesses in Krill technology, including vulnerabilities in their energy shields and propulsion systems. Engineers worked around the clock to develop countermeasures, retrofitting existing weapons with sonic disruptors and designing new tools specifically tailored to exploit these flaws. Sonic mines were deployed near key locations, creating deadly traps for unsuspecting Krill patrols. Each successful ambush bolstered humanity's confidence. Commander Vrax, however, was far from defeated. Though frustrated by the setbacks, he remained determined to crush this stubborn species. From his flagship, the Bladeclaw, he issued orders to regroup and adapt. "These humans are pests," he snarled at Lieutenant Sira, who stood silently beside him. "They rely on tricks and deception because they lack true strength. But even pests can be exterminated." Sira hesitated before speaking. "Perhaps there is more to them than we assumed, Commander. Their unity, their resilience, it is unlike anything we have encountered before." Vrax growled low in his throat, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Unity means nothing without power, and soon they will learn that lesson." Despite his bravado, cracks were beginning to show within the Krill ranks. Morale plummeted as soldiers questioned why they continued to suffer losses against such an inferior foe. Some whispered about abandoning the campaign altogether, while others openly defied orders, refusing to risk their lives for what seemed like a futile cause. Even Vrax couldn't ignore the growing unrest. On Earth, the tide turned decisively in one pivotal battle near Tokyo. A massive Krill assault force descended upon the city, intent on obliterating the last major stronghold of human resistance in the region. What the invaders didn't anticipate was the sheer scale of the trap waiting for them. Civilians had transformed the urban landscape into a fortress, rigging buildings with explosives and booby-trapping streets. When the Krill landed, they walked straight into chaos. Marcus led the charge, wielding a prototype weapon equipped with enhanced sonic capabilities. The device emitted a deafening screech that shattered Krill armor and left their soldiers disoriented. Behind him, squads of fighters advanced, using guerrilla tactics honed over weeks of relentless combat. Explosions rocked the cityscape as sonic mines detonated, sending shockwaves through the alien ranks. For every human casualty, 3 Krill fell. By the time reinforcements arrived, the invaders had been routed, retreating into the skies with heavy losses. The victory wasn't just tactical, it was symbolic. Humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest hunters and emerge victorious. As the dust settled, Dr. Vasquez addressed a crowd of survivors gathered amidst the ruins. Her voice rang out clear and steady, carrying a message of defiance and determination. "Today, we showed them that we are not prey. We are fighters. We are survivors. And no matter how many times they come for us, we will rise again." Across the globe, people cheered, tears streaming down their faces. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humanity dared to believe that victory might be possible. The Krill had underestimated their opponents, and now they would pay the price. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The victories on Earth sent ripples far beyond the planet's atmosphere. While humanity celebrated its hard-fought successes, tensions simmered within the Krill ranks. News of their repeated failures reached the ruling council on the Krill homeworld, a distant planet shrouded in perpetual twilight, where jagged spires pierced crimson skies. The council chambers buzzed with heated debates as elders argued over the fate of the invasion. Commander Vrax stood before the council, his towering frame bowed slightly in deference, but his glowing blue eyes blazing with defiance. "This is no ordinary species," he admitted, his voice low and gravelly. "They adapt, they resist, and they fight with a unity we have never encountered. But they are still weak. Give me more time, and I will crush them." Counselor Zirek, an elder with scars etched deep into his scaled skin, leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "Time is a luxury we cannot afford, Commander. Every day this war drags on. Our resources dwindle. Our warriors grow restless, and whispers of dissent spread among the clans." Vrax clenched his fists, claws digging into his palms. He knew Zirak spoke the truth. The Krill prided themselves on efficiency, on swift conquests that left little room for resistance. Humanity had shattered that illusion, exposing cracks in their seemingly invincible empire. For the first time in centuries, doubt crept into the hearts of even the most loyal hunters. Dr. Elena Vasquez, monitoring intercepted transmissions from UDC headquarters, pieced together fragments of these internal conflicts. Her discovery sparked an audacious idea, one that could turn the tide of the war forever. She approached General Hayes with a proposal that bordered on madness. "We can't keep fighting them head-on indefinitely," she said, her tone urgent yet measured. "But what if we strike at their very foundation? What if we expose the truth about the Krill to their own people?" Hayes raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "What truth? That they're not conquerors. They're exterminators," Vasquez replied. "Their hunts aren't about dominance. They're about sport. Entire civilizations have been wiped out for entertainment. If we broadcast this information directly to the Krill populace, it could ignite rebellion within their ranks." The plan was risky, requiring the UDC to hijack a heavily guarded Krill communication array orbiting Earth. Marcus Kane volunteered immediately, assembling a small team for the mission. Among them was Samira, whose hacking skills would prove crucial, and Sergeant Riley, tasked with handling any physical threats. Under cover of darkness, the team infiltrated the array station using stolen Krill tech to mask their presence. Inside, the air was thick with tension as they navigated narrow corridors lined with pulsating energy conduits. Samira worked quickly, bypassing security protocols while Marcus and Riley kept watch. "This is insane," Riley muttered, clutching his rifle tightly. "If they catch us, we're dead. And if we succeed, we might save billions," Marcus shot back, his voice firm despite the danger. Finally, Samira gave a triumphant nod. "We're in. Broadcasting now." The message, a harrowing montage of destroyed worlds, enslaved populations, and the horrors inflicted by the Krill, blasted across the galaxy in real time. On the Krill homeworld, civilians gathered around public screens, watching in stunned silence as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Shock turned to outrage, and outrage to fury. Protests erupted in cities across the planet, demanding answers from their leaders. Back aboard the Blediclaw, Vrax watched the chaos unfold with mounting dread. His greatest fear had come to pass, not defeat by humanity, but betrayal from within his own kind. The hunters were now the hunted. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The galaxy held its breath as rebellion ignited across the Krill homeworld. Streets once ruled by fear erupted into chaos, with citizens demanding justice for centuries of atrocities committed in the name of sport. Fires burned brightly against the crimson skies, and the jagged spires of the capital city were illuminated not by the glow of triumph, but by the flames of dissent. Councillor Zurak stood before a crowd of enraged civilians, his voice trembling as he tried to maintain control. "We are the Krill," he roared. "We do not bow to weakness." But his words fell on deaf ears. The truth about their empire's brutal history had shattered the illusion of honor that bound them together. Even among the warrior clans, loyalty wavered. Some called for an end to the war, while others urged escalation, a final devastating strike to restore their pride. Commander Vrax, however, refused to surrender. Seething with rage and humiliation, he made a decision that would define the fate of both species. Ignoring orders from the Council, he redirected the remaining fleet toward Earth, determined to annihilate humanity at any cost. "If they think they've won," he growled to Lieutenant Sira, "they will learn just how wrong they are." On Earth, the UDC scrambled to prepare for what everyone knew would be the climactic battle. Intelligence reports confirmed Vrax's intentions, a full-scale assault aimed at obliterating Earth's orbital defenses and rendering the planet defenseless. General Hayes addressed the coalition leaders, his tone grim yet resolute. "This is it. If we lose our satellites and space stations, we're finished. We have one chance to stop them. And we need every soldier, every civilian, every weapon we can muster." Lieutenant Marcus Kane led the charge once more, rallying troops from all corners of the globe. In New York City, survivors emerged from underground bunkers, armed with rifles and makeshift explosives. Farmers drove tractors loaded with supplies to frontline positions, while engineers worked tirelessly to fortify orbital platforms. Every man, woman, and child contributed to the effort, united by a single purpose: survival. Dr. Elena Vasquez remained at mission control, coordinating strategies and analyzing data from the battlefield. Her voice crackled over global communication channels as she delivered updates to commanders on the ground. "Their flagship is leading the attack," she announced. "Take out the Bladiclaw, and you cripple their entire fleet." As the Krill armada approached Earth, the sky turned dark with ships blotting out the sun. Humanity's forces launched interceptors, firing salvos of missiles and sonic disruptors in a desperate bid to thin the enemy ranks. Explosions lit up the atmosphere, creating a fiery curtain between the invaders and the planet below. In orbit, Marcus and his team boarded a captured Krill fighter, using stolen tech to infiltrate the heart of the fleet. Their objective was clear: destroy the Bladiclaw's command center. Inside the ship, chaos reigned as alarms blared and corridors filled with smoke. Marcus moved with precision, each step bringing him closer to Vrax. Finally, they reached the bridge. Vrax awaited them, his towering frame silhouetted against the burning earth visible through the viewport. "You think you've won," he snarled, raising his claws. "You've only delayed the inevitable." Marcus didn't respond. With a roar, he charged, knowing this fight would decide the fate of two worlds. Would you like me to continue expanding other parts in similar detail? The battle between Marcus Kane and Commander Vrax was a clash of wills as much as it was of strength. The bridge of the Bladiclaw shook violently from explosions outside, sparks flying from damaged control panels as the two warriors circled each other like predators sizing up their prey. Vrax's claws gleamed menacingly in the dim red emergency lights, his glowing blue eyes filled with fury. Marcus stood firm, gripping a sonic disruptor in one hand and a combat knife in the other, his breathing steady despite the chaos around him. "You're nothing but pests," Vrax growled, lunging forward with terrifying speed. His claws slashed through the air, narrowly missing Marcus, who ducked and rolled to avoid the blow. The disruptor hummed to life in Marcus's grip, emitting a high-pitched screech that forced Vrax to stagger back, clutching his head. For all their power, the Krill were not invincible, and humanity had learned how to exploit their weaknesses. With a roar, Marcus pressed the attack, driving Vrax toward the shattered viewport overlooking Earth. Behind them, the planet hung suspended in space, its surface scarred by war, but still breathtakingly beautiful. Vrax fought back fiercely, his strikes fueled by desperation and pride. But Marcus's resolve burned brighter. Each swing of his knife, each pulse from the disruptor, carried the weight of every life lost, every city destroyed. This wasn't just for survival, it was for justice. Finally, with a well-timed strike, Marcus plunged the knife into a vulnerable joint in Vrax's armor. The Krill commander stumbled, falling to one knee as blood seeped from the wound. Defeat flickered in his glowing eyes for the first time. "Impossible," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the cacophony of destruction. "It's over," Marcus said firmly, standing above him. "Your kind hunted us like animals, but we're not prey, we're survivors." Before Vrax could respond, the bridge trembled violently as Sergeant Riley detonated charges planted throughout the ship. "Marcus, get out of there," came Riley's urgent voice over the comms. Without hesitation, Marcus turned and sprinted toward the exit, leaving Vrax behind as the Bladiclaw began to collapse in on itself. Outside, the remaining Krill fleet faltered without its flagship. Humanity's forces capitalized on the confusion, launching a final coordinated assault that crippled the invader ships. One by one, they retreated into the void, fleeing the wrath of a species they had once dismissed as weak. Back on Earth, the victory was bittersweet. Cities lay in ruins, millions mourned loved ones, and scars, both physical and emotional, would take generations to heal. Yet amidst the devastation, hope blossomed. People gathered in streets and shelters, singing songs of resilience and rebuilding what had been lost. The Unified Defense Coalition announced plans to restore infrastructure, share resources, and ensure such a tragedy could never happen again. Dr. Elena Vasquez addressed the world from the UDC headquarters, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. Today, humanity proved something extraordinary. When united, we are capable of overcoming even the greatest odds. We have shown the galaxy that we are more than mere survivors. We are builders, dreamers, fighters. And now, it is our duty to use this experience to create a better future, not just for ourselves, but for all beings. As news spread of the rebellion on the Krill homeworld, embassies opened channels of communication with disillusioned factions seeking peace. For the first time in centuries, the Krill faced accountability, their empire crumbling under the weight of its own atrocities. It was a lesson hard-earned and dearly paid for, but one that changed the course of history. In the quiet moments after the war, Marcus stood atop a hill overlooking New York City, now beginning to rise from the ashes. The sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the horizon. He thought of those who had fallen, their sacrifices etched forever into the fabric of humanity. Then he smiled, a small, weary smile, but one filled with hope. Earth had survived, and it would thrive.